All right, guys, welcome to the Who's Who podcast, where we talk about life, martial arts, and whatever the hell we feel like. My name is Robinson Galvez, your host, and today I'm here with my guest, Megan Washam.
Hey.
Meg is an amateur fighter
Yes.
in America, and she's coming off of a few big wins here at IFMA in Bangkok.
Yeah.
So welcome, Megan.
Thank you.
Thanks
so
for coming
great
on.
to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, in our amazing studio. Me and Kenny have already touched. It's like, it feels so corny being here, you know?
I feel like I'm in a professional studio. I
Do
don't
you?
know what you're talking about.
Okay, all right, cool. Maybe it's just because I live here, you know? Yeah, so let me see what I got on you. What dirt did I find?
Whoa.
It's funny, you're not a very Googleable person, even though you work for Google.
Really?
Yeah.
Secretly erase all my results.
Yeah. I'm like, damn, you're hard to keep track of. So that way your opponents can't find you. All right, cool. So you've been fighting for how long?
I was just looking at an old video of one of my first training sessions. It was just a little over 3 years ago. Like
3 years?
3 years, 4 months. Yeah, crazy.
Okay, the look on my face is probably, it's not because I'm like, oh, it's because of what she's accomplished in that time. I'm like, are you kidding me? Cool. And how many fights do you have?
So before IFMA, I had 11,
Okay.
and then I added 4 in the past week. So
Nice.
now I'm at 15.
Nice. Okay. And then you have, how many titles do you have now?
Oh, I have a USMTO, Legends, West Coast Elite, and a IKF state title.
Okay. Nice.
So
Lucky.
4.
Nice. Okay. And then most recently the IFMA gold medal.
Yes. The most important.
Yeah. That's the way, how could you forget that one? But yeah. And you are from Texas, right? That's like as American as it gets. They were like, we don't have enough freedom. We want to break away and have more. Yeah. And then so right now you are training out of Woodenman, right? Yeah.
Yep. With Jungsunan and Nuxiam.
Yeah, it's sick. And then you're here at Fairtex here in Pattaya, right? So that's your Thailand gym. I've already covered that you work at Google. That's the only thing I knew about you outside of fighting, you know. And then you have a lot of little side gigs going on, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I want to talk about IFMA, right? Because getting to IFMA in a few years at the level that you're competing at in like 3 years is like crazy to me.
Yeah.
You know, like it seems like things are really starting to mesh for you. And I know that before coming here, you had a hard time finding fights a little bit, you know, and you were really scrapping together to find these things. So I want you to break down what it was like even just being like selected to go to the U.S. tournament, and what was that like, the stage 1? Yeah,
so it was actually a really interesting journey, like a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions because so the way the IFMA process works, it used to be that they would just like select fighters, and then I think last year was the first year that just because USA Muay Thai is growing so much, they started doing a qualifier tournament. And then they pretty much kind of follow IFMA style scoring with the pads and all of that. And they hold it in Denver.
Okay.
And so whoever wins each weight class then is, you know, the representative to go to IFMA. Yeah. So first I had to get ready for that tournament, which is a whole thing in and of itself because it's in Denver at altitude. So I went with my teammate Ethan like about 10 days, 2 weeks early, and we started training in Denver. And there was kind of some movement all over the brackets. So for a little while, I didn't even know if I would have a fight.
Damn.
Yeah, and then right before we left, it was confirmed that Summer Bronco, who is very young but has tons of experience. She's competed at IFMA at the youth games multiple times, and she fights at 54 kilograms as well, so she would be in my bracket.
Cool.
So yeah, I went to that tournament knowing like I would have one fight, and I knew it would probably be the most competitive fight I've had because obviously Summer has a lot of experience, like a lot of composure in the ring. And so anyways, went into that. I actually lost the qualifying fight. Which was my first loss. So going into that fight, I was 10-0. And so that was obviously very disappointing. But I learned a lot. Like the IFMA style of scoring, you have to really be like aggressive. Like it has to be high volume of strikes landed. You know, it's not just about, I don't know, sometimes it's easy to kind of get in the pretty Muay Thai and all that. And,
especially with your coach.
Yeah. And so I thought it was a good fight, but I definitely lost. She definitely outscored me. But I was really proud of the performance, and the third round especially, I really started to catch on to, what that more aggressive style was like. And it was a cool moment because I think some things clicked for me just about the fight mentality. And then, after the fight, I was actually told that there were 2 divisions this year at IFMA. So one is an under 23 bracket, and then the other is the elite bracket, so above 23. And because Summer is younger, after watching the fight, they had decided that they wanted us both to go and be on the team. So they put Summer on the under 23 and actually still selected me to be in the elite bracket. So I only say that because it's crazy that I almost was not even at IFMA.
Yeah.
So it's just really wild to think that, had somebody not seen some potential in that fight, I wouldn't have even been there, much less winning gold. And that kind of experience would have just ended in a disappointing loss. So crazy, the twists and turns that can happen.
Yeah. It's crazy because it does seem like the stars aligned for you perfectly for this moment, right? And it was interesting because you came to Fairtex was it a week early?
About 10 days.
10 days, and then I remember talking to you, and you were like, if I get all these fights, and I remember like this one moment, and I was just like, no, when? And I was like, I don't know if I believe it at the moment either, but I was like, no, come on, believe in yourself, you're doing the thing, And then you come out, just boom, you win the whole thing, and what was it like for you going in there and after the first win, how do you feel? You're like, okay, I got this, or where do you start to develop the confidence? And okay, I'm winning. I'm good enough to hang with these ladies here.
So I definitely, sometimes people go into a situation that they're not expected to do well in, and then afterwards they're like, I knew that I could do it. Nobody believed in me. That is not true. I literally, my whole goal was, I have to win my first fight because that's going to be so embarrassing if they let me on the team and then I lose. So my whole thing was if I win one fight at least, I show that I can fight at this level. I showed why I'm on the team and I won't be embarrassed that I was a walk-on. So definitely I did not come into the tournament thinking I was going to win. But I think the moment actually that I started to get a little bit of confidence was the way they do the tournament is each round, all of the people from the same weight class kind of fight back to back to back in the same ring. So when there's one fight ahead of you, or when there's 2 fights ahead, they kind of sit you in this seating area backstage. You actually sit next to your opponent. And then when there's only one fight ahead of you, they actually move you into the stadium and sit you with your coaches. So you're actually watching the fight that's happening right before you, and your opponent's on the other side. And because of the way they did it, the fight that was before me was in my bracket. So it was, I think her name's Laura Fernandez. She fights in one championship. And she was fighting in 54. And then I don't remember who she was fighting, but someone else. And I'm kind of trying to get in my zone because I'm about to fight, but then also watching. Because I knew going in, I was like, oh, she's probably the number 1, kind of contender. And I'm watching this fight, and it was a good fight, obviously it was impressive, but I'm sitting there and I'm like,
you are my peer.
I could fight them, I'm watching and I'm like, I think I could beat both of those people. And I turned to my corner and I told him that. I was like, I can beat those girls. And he was like, yeah, but first you have to win the first fight. And so that's when I was kind of like, okay, I got to go in there and I just got to hit the gas pedal from the beginning because I need to win my first fight, and also now I had the confidence where it was I can actually hang with these elite fighters. And then the first fight I was able to kind of flip that switch. I've always been a slow starter, and so I knew that was my biggest challenge, but I just had my mind as soon as we touch gloves, go. Act like it's the last round. Every round is the last round. And so I feel like that flip switched. And after that fight, I still knew that all the fights would be really challenging. But that's when I kind of had a little bit of belief that I could, I could maybe go medal. I don't know if I thought gold yet. But
okay. So the first confidence was seeing the opponents, seeing your bracket. You're like, okay. You got a little bit of I got this, and then getting in there was the next step where you're getting confidence that you would medal. And then how do you feel after winning every fight? Are you just mind blown every time, or are you just was there a point where you're like, okay, I I knew I could win that one.
So, I mean, I think that I knew IFMA is different, right? Because I've always known who my opponents will be. Mm-hmm. So usually I have like 5 weeks to prep for a fight. You study that fighter and you kind of adapt your style. You work on a game plan. With IFMA, it's like you don't know who's going to win the fights. You don't know who you're going to face. So maybe you have a day to watch, their last fight and game plan a little bit. But in general, like, you've never seen them fight. Like, you don't know a lot about them. And so I think I had like a little bit of nerves going into each fight because you just really don't know what they're going to come out with. But if the other thing about IFMA is they have open scoring. Mm-hmm. So after each round, you actually see how the judges scored it. So you know what you need to do the next round. Sick. So I think the first rounds, all of them were a little bit like nerves and okay, how is this going to go? Because I'm just going in totally blind. And then I actually won every round if I didn't lose a round.
Oh,
and,
sick.
Yeah.
Hell
and so every time after I would see that first round go in, and, I felt their punches. Then I settled a little bit. And then second and third, I think most fights I just got better every round because, kind of settled in a little bit. And then I'm like, okay, let's go, like, close it out,
That's sick because that's why I love tournaments because you feel on top of the world after a win usually, I mean, in my experience at least.
Yeah.
And then you win a turn and then you win that round the next one, you feel like you just made that jump like that, right? That's why like fighting is so important in a sport like ours because that's where you make all like the key corrections.
Yeah.
And then that next fight, you're just building on that fight, and it's just like you gain like how long does it take to get a fight? Sometimes 3-4 months of experience, but that's just that one fight.
Yeah.
And so you're like stacking, you're layering this up, and you're just getting exponentially better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in Muay Thai, I think that skill is obviously important, and you want to make corrections. In the tournaments, I think you can make little corrections. You don't obviously have a lot of time to like get back in the gym and like fix something.
Yeah.
But I think what's especially cool about it is, as a newer fighter, I think one of the hardest things to kind of overcome is the nerves, right? Like the feeling of when you have just like a one fight on one night, you spend so much time building up to it, and it feels like this huge moment, and it's like, oh my gosh, I spent 6 weeks working for this and all of that, and so it's so much just on your shoulders. Yeah. Whereas with the tournament, it starts to feel like business as usual.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
like, okay, I just did this a day ago.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like this huge thing. It just feels like something that I do, and it's not as big of a deal. And I think those nerves really started to like go away a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree with everything that you're saying because I often made the comparison between American like building up to a fight, and you come to Thailand, it's like, hey, you fight tomorrow, and you're like, all right, cool, or you fight in a couple weeks, like, all right, cool, and so there's not like that build up or that like, okay, tickets or like that kind of like team, how you feeling, that's, like you might get it a couple times here, but it's that like there's a difference there, and I think tournaments do carry that because you're like one fight and I'm out, so I might as well just whatever, throw it.
100%.
Just freaking all heart or whatever, right?
All heart, yeah, I like that.
So you were talking about earlier off the podcast. You were talking about the anti-doping thing that was like that got you a little bit scared. So how does that work? Because I haven't said it yet, and whoops, my bad. But IFMA is the International Federation of Muay Thai, so it's like it's the highest level of Muay Thai that around the world, right? It's an Olympic recognized, right?
Yeah, this was the first IFMA event where it was Olympic recognized.
Okay, yeah, so it's a big one to be a part of and a big one to win, right? And then so they're establishing these policies so people aren't like doping, right? People aren't coming in because that's very common in a sport like ours. So what is that like? What is what to what degree do they do the to what degree do they do the checking? There's the caffeine in here.
Okay, so that was interesting because, I mean, I don't dope. I shouldn't have anything to be worried about. All natural.
Yeah.
But, they made us do like a 2.5-hour course before we could even register. So you had to have it done like 2 weeks before the event. And then after the event, they had like this athlete conference, and there was like another hour-long presentation by this guy, Toby. Shout out to Toby. Very dead audience. He presented so well. He really kept the energy up. But all to say, like, they talked about it a lot, and it's definitely like scare tactics, and it had me like so freaked out because one of the things they were talking about was like they call it athlete strict liability. So it's pretty much if you incidentally have something in your system and you test, like, it doesn't matter why it's there. It doesn't matter if like you took it on purpose. It doesn't matter. There's actually like I won't say super common, but somewhat of a common issue with like supplements being tainted. So if you take something that was made in the same factory as where something else is made, you can accidentally. But it doesn't matter. Like, you're done. And I don't know what the case was for this specific person, but last year, Ashley Thiner from the U.S. won silver, and the person that won gold actually tested positive for something, and they stripped her gold and gave it to Ashley. So it's like no joke. And so essentially what happens is they can test anyone, but if you win gold, they test. I can't remember if it's all the gold medalists or if it's like 50-50 selection. But so literally as soon as I get out of the ring, I'm like not even made it to my team, to like celebrate. And the guys from WADA or ITA, there's a couple organizations, came up and like, okay, you have to go with us right away. Like, go get drug tested.
All right, walk on. How did you win this?
Exactly. And so then, of course, I'm like, oh my God. And then as soon as I get done with the drug test, I'm like Googling all the supplements I take. And I'm like, is it third-party batch tested?
That's what we're talking about. It's like all you can only take is like maybe like a Zinder or the Onnit. Like, you really gotta like.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, the presentation was so scary because they're pretty much like, our recommendation is to only fuel your diet with, fruits and vegetables and whole foods.
You know how expensive that is, bro? Like, I'll break my bank real quick.
So it was definitely like they take it very seriously, and it's a very, very well done, well organized event. But a lot of aspects that I had never, encountered before in like a normal, American amateur Muay Thai fight.
No, I get that. I totally understand because like, it's funny. Even here, I think unless you're fighting in a major organization, they don't test here in Thailand. So it's just like having to deal with that aspect of it is always interesting. Like, I just had my first one and I remember listening to all the things. I was like, I don't know. I can't imagine doing that and then being like, okay, I'm going to go back to amateur. Because honestly, I would prefer that actually, because now you're just going to go to amateur and be like, oh, we're chilling, man. I guess it's fine. Like, no process, nothing lengthy. It's just like going or whatever. So an IFMA, you have to weigh in. How is I don't actually know. That's why I was going to ask. So what is the weigh-in process for IFMA?
So again, brand new experience. So I was fighting at 54 kilograms, which is like about 119 pounds. And you essentially have to go, and every single morning that you fight, you weigh in. So I think the tournament is like 10 days long. I fought 4 times, so I had 4 weigh-ins. The weigh-ins are at 7 a.m. and then the fights start at 2. So you don't have quite as much time to like refuel, rehydrate. I was lucky. I think most of my fights were a little later, so like maybe 4 to 6 p.m. So you had a couple more hours to refuel. But that was one of the most unique, crazy, but like special things about the tournament was every single night at the hotel, they actually have a whole Muay Thai gym upstairs at the hotel.
Oh, sick.
And so every night, as soon as the fights end, that area is just like covered with fighters in sauna suits, just like running in circles because it's an outdoor gym.
Is it the boxing one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just like a bunch of fighters like all in their sauna suits, like working out outside, like running, all cutting weight together. So a bit of camaraderie in it, but it was definitely, I was a little nervous about it because I haven't had to do same-day weigh-ins really before, maybe one time for a tournament. I've never had to do multiple weigh-ins, and, normally as soon as you weigh in, you're refueling a ton, right? Like tons of carbs, tons of salt, and you can't do it the same way when you have to make weight again. You would usually fight, have one break day, and then fight again. So you can't, like, put on too much in between. But I work with a nutritionist. She's on Instagram, like the fight nutritionist, and she's great, and she like did my whole plan for me.
Sick.
But yeah, it was definitely not like the most fun thing.
Yeah.
Cutting weight every single or every other day.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely adds a complication to like the whole experience.
Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't deal with that. I think cutting weight once is enough.
Yeah.
Like I hats off to you.
I put my sauna suit in my suitcase and I was like, I never want to look at you again.
Yeah. You are done. You're retired, my friend. No. What was I gonna tell you? Dang it. Oh, I totally forgot. That's okay. It happens.
About sauna suits?
Yeah. No. Oh, you wait. So, do you fighting at IFMA at sauna suits? At IFMA, do you fight at your natural weight, like what you normally fight at, or do you fight a little bit heavier because of the weigh-in process, or what's that like?
Actually, I was fighting lower. Normally in the States, I'm like more flexible with my weight or the weight that I fight at, because you obviously just want to take fights.
Yeah.
So I think I've only fought at 118 one other time, and it was at USMTO.
Okay.
Almost all of my fights have been at 122, and then I even have some at 125, which is big for me because I don't even walk around at 125.
Yeah.
But,
damn, like a Sanchez thing going on here, just fighting bigger opponents because you can't find them.
Yeah, why not? Although I will say, a couple fights ago, I fought at 125, and this girl cracked me so hard. And then afterwards, my coach was like, "No more 125."
Yeah, that's good. That's a good coach.
Yeah. But yeah, so this was most of my fights at 122. I don't even have to like do any sort of water cut. You know, I just like lower my food a little bit the last week, and I wake up on weight.
Okay, so what do you walk around at?
I would say like when I'm fully eating, fully hydrated, like maybe 124. So like
you don't cut at all.
Yeah, so 122, it's like I'll just lower carbs a little bit and wake up, and I don't have to do like a sweat cut for 122. So 118, I did have to sweat out a little bit, and it's different. I will say, because normally I'll wake up and then the weigh-ins are like in the afternoon. If it was like a little bit more weight cutting, only because the weigh-ins were so early that I had to cut weight at the end of the day. So I was still like eating and drinking all day. Okay. So normally I'd have to sweat out maybe like 2 or 3 kilos every night. Okay. But that's like fully hydrated, fully fed, because you can't like deplete yourself too much.
Too much, yeah.
So yeah.
It actually worked in your favor that you don't cut very much.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Holy crap. So what is the lowest that you think you could get down to? Like, let's say like, the next step would obviously be going pro, maybe like a 1 fight. Like what would you be willing to get down to?
You know what? That's a great question. I feel like I need to test it out, because like I felt like the cuts for me to 118, 119 are not hard, but it definitely gets harder the more depleted you get. Right. So that's always the question, right? As soon as you hit one weight, everyone's like, "Can you go lower?"
Yeah, yeah. I know. I started fighting at 172. Yeah. And I now fight at 147. So I understand how that goes.
Yeah, yeah.
But for you already like you're pretty built though. Like you're lean.
I'm a big 54. Like
You're actually tall.
Yeah.
Not big, I would say, but tall for sure.
Yeah, I'm a tall 54. Actually, the girl I fought for the IFMA gold medal, she was the first person I've ever fought that was taller than me. Oh, damn. So I was like, oh, this is what it's like.
Yeah. And Mexican, right? Yeah, so that's another anomaly.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, people always ask, they're like, can you fight at 52 kilos? I'm like, I don't know. Probably not. Also, I think that it's debatable to me, like how advantageous it is to keep going lower, because I think that, 118 is 54 kilos is a very easy weight for me. I feel great. I don't deplete myself a lot. Like I'm still able to, even fight week, right? Like I can still train hard that whole week. Whereas like if you're cutting a bunch of weight, you have to pull back on your training a little bit. So, and I'm already big for that weight class. It's not like I need to go lower to get a reach advantage. Yeah. So I don't know. I think lower is not always better. I think, maybe you look at going lower if there's a huge opportunity at that weight class.
That's true, yeah.
But otherwise, I don't think, I don't feel the need.
Yeah. Gotcha, Jinx. All right, cool. So that's crazy. I think you are probably one of the most, like, at my weight, I fight at my weight people, Yeah. I don't hear about that very much. I know myself, like, I will do, like, a bigger cut. I'm getting better about it now because I'm getting more educated, but 2 pounds, That's insane. Like you can
nice.
just I envy your what do you call it, metabolism or whatever it is.
This is the funny thing. Everyone's like, oh, you like they think it's metabolism.
Yeah.
It's actually I just eat really clean all the time, and the reason is not even really clean all the time. I try to keep my weight low all the time because I hate dieting. Like the idea of having to lose a pound stresses me out because when your walk around weight is pretty on, you can have like maintenance calories, right? So I can eat a bunch of food, and as long as I don't go too crazy, it's like my weight stays the same. So it's like I can have ice cream if I want, a couple times a week. I can have like chocolate every day. Okay. But if I let my weight go up and I have to diet, then it's like, I have to eat totally clean.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I just I try to keep it low so that I can have more flexibility in what I eat because I just like dieting. I'm so bad at it.
Huh. I might take that from you. That's a good way to go about it.
You have one diet, you get down to the weight you want to stay at, and then you can you can eat pretty much anything you want as long as you don't go crazy.
You know what's funny? I think everybody talks about doing that, and I don't know if anyone really does, except for you. Because I talk about, I'm like, when I'm like cutting weight, I'll be like, I'm never gonna do this again. I'm gonna walk around way lower. And then same thing with my brother. Like he's been trying to stay like 10 pounds lighter than he has been for his fights, and he's just like. He's like, I'm back up to 190 or something. It's like, dude, like you said, it's like, I know, but it's just snacking, bro. I'm Mexican. It's different.
The thing is, too, like, outside of Muay Thai, like, one of my biggest hobbies is baking. Like, I love baking. And so I'm like, I don't want to ever be to where, like, I can't bake and, like, eat stuff because I'm having to, like, diet down. Or, like, if I do have to diet, it's funny because then I just, like, bring all of my baked goods to the gym and like make everyone else eat it.
I'll try this new recipe. Tell me if it's good, please. That's sick. Oh man, not the days that I went.
Let me know next time. You know ahead of time.
For sure. I'll be like, hey, what are you baking? So what else do we want to talk about? So let's talk about now. We talked about IFMA. That's obviously a big thing, and like congratulations on you for making that. Especially like that's like. It's a true like underdog story, you know. I feel like you can make a movie just about that whole thing, you know. It's like, all right, she went and lost, and then walk on it, you know. It's like have you seen Rudy?
Oh yeah,
kind of like a Rudy. But you are you're living in San Francisco. That's why we met, right? We have a coach in common, Johnson, and you're originally from Texas. So how did you make the transition from Texas? Was that college? Was that like? When did you move out to California?
So, I'm from the Dallas area, Texas. And went
Cowboys
to school.
fan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cowboys, Rangers, like
I don't know about the sports, so I won't give you shit. I just know that the Cowboys fans get a lot of shit.
Cowboys are heartbreakers. The Rangers are looking up this year, so cool. We have hope. And then I interned at Google my senior year of college. So I played softball through college at a small school in Missouri.
Missouri, okay.
And my senior year, I did an internship for Google. Ended up getting an offer for a full-time job, and there weren't really location options, so the only place was San Francisco. Which honestly, I had never been there. Yeah. I think I'd been there actually for like half a day one time. And if you know SF, I just put in my map San Francisco, and of course it took me to like
the dead center,
which is like, if you know SF, it's like a crazy place. And so that was my only experience there. So when they told me I had to move to San Francisco, I was like, Google's a great company, but I don't know if it's worth it. But I ended up out there, and
to get a campus tour or something before, please, you have to convince me.
Exactly. No, I didn't even go back. I just moved, and so I've been there for 6 years almost, minus like a year and a half during COVID. Okay. I moved back to Texas, and that's actually like around when I was starting Muay Thai.
Oh, okay, so you were in California for a while before you started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually like a crazy thing. So I'd started doing just some cardio, boxing, whatever, and then I went home to visit my family at Christmas, and this was right before COVID started. So when was that? Like end of 2019?
2019,
yeah. And I looked up.
No, I was. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, sorry. End of 2019, and then I think COVID started 2020. Yeah. So I just looked up on Google Maps boxing gym near my parents' house because I just wanted to go get in a workout, and Saxon Muay Thai, which Saxon Ginger popped up on the map. He was pretty close to there.
Yeah.
So I went, and Saxon was there, and he was like, oh, like, you know, you're not bad. I think you should train Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And he told me...
Did you do private, or you just hop in a group
I just went in the class. Okay. Yeah, I had no idea what was happening. I was like... I was lost. I didn't actually realize, like, Muay Thai was not boxing. Like, I didn't know what it... Like, I didn't really know what it was.
Yeah.
So he told me, he was like, you know, there's this guy, Jung Sunan, in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. I think you should go there. So when I got back, January 2020, walked into Woodenman Muay Thai, trained there for 2 months before COVID, moved back to Texas, and then trained with Saxon for a year, and that's where I had my first three fights, and then moved back to SF and started training with Jung Sunan.
That's sick.
Yeah. Crazy. Like, I just had nothing going on during COVID. Like, I was living in Texas. Like, none of my high school friends were there. It was great to spend time with family, but I was just kind of bored. Yeah. So I just, like, lived at the gym.
Do you ever buy, like, lottery tickets or anything?
No, I never win. I never win.
No, I would stop that, because I'm just saying, it feels like you just kind of get lucky. Like, maybe it's not all the time, but I'm like, how lucky were you to walk into this gym, get to train with the two really high-level, well-respected coaches and accomplished fighters, and then you just get to, and then you have all these fights. You tend to win all your fights. You got the great job. you go win this tournament as a walkout. As we keep making the joke, you know, like maybe you should play the lottery. You should have bought a lottery ticket that day that you won, and like maybe you would keep it going.
It's not too late. I see those people walk around the streets of Pattaya with lottery tickets
all the time. Yeah. They could use it. You know, they're hustling. But it's cool. It's cool to see how, like, it really does seem like hearing your story, just feel like it's like, oh, we're being pushed, so, like, you know, everything just keeps kind of working out for you right now.
Yeah, it is sick. Crazy. I'm a big fan of just following, like, I'm goal oriented. I like planning, but I also think that I don't know, just like I'm a big fan of just like following doors that open, you know?
Yeah, just going on adventures.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sick. And what is it like training with? I'm not too familiar with Saxon, but give me a little breakdown of what that area is like, because that was your Jung Sunan a little bit, but that's where you started your career. Yeah. So what is that environment like, and what is like?
So it's interesting. Saxon and Jung Sunan have very different styles, so it was definitely an adjustment for me. Coming to Jung Sunan to Woodenman after Saxon. Because, you know, Jung Sunan is very known for, like, forward style, kind of aggressive knees, boxing. And Saxon, I would say his style is very, like, slick, kind of Muay Thai, like, in and out. He says all the time, you know, like, I don't want you to hit me in the face. So, like, he's kind of like, hit you, and then I'm gone, you know?
Okay, yeah.
Whereas, you know, what I've had to learn from Jung Sunan is, like, how to stay in the pocket and, like, defend, and then, like, counter back. Yeah. But yeah, and then Saxon also is like really known for his left kick, because he was orthodox, but he threw like a left head kick, like it was nasty, and so I feel like for a long part of my career now I'm evolving a little bit more, like maybe finding some different tools that work just as good or better, but for a long time I don't even think I threw a single punch in my first, like, 3 fights. Yeah. Like, I didn't box. I just, like, left kicks.
Okay. Because his left kick was orthodox, and yours had a southpaw.
Yeah, but I definitely learned how to throw my kick from, like, Saxon. And also, he has 2 students, Chitty and AK, who coached me a lot. I did privates with them, like, the whole time I was there. Okay, cool. And, yeah, so I definitely, like, my kick is kind of the Saxon style. Okay. And then slowly but surely, I'm kind of getting that, like, Jung Sunan boxing and knees styles while I'm kind of trying to figure out how to put them together.
Yeah, that's sick. Oh, man. It's funny that you say, because I remember, like, the first thing I probably ever saw about you was that video of you head kicking the girl. And I think it was like, it wasn't even like your profile, it was on some page that reposted it. And I was like, isn't this girl at Woodenman? And I was like, what the heck? And I was like, oh, she's good. Like, crazy.
That was a crazy experience. So, like, my first fight, actually, this is, again, like, kind of serendipitous. Jung Sunan was in Texas when I had my first fight. Even though I was, like, fighting under Saxon. And so he came to the fight and actually ended up, like, Saxon was telling him, and he was like, oh, she was your student first, like, you quarter her, and Jungsun was like, no. But then Saxon kept telling him, so he ended up quartering me, and which is just crazy that that he was there for that first fight. And then I just like threw a left kick, and the girl, I don't think she really knew how to fight a southpaw fighter.
Okay.
She was orthodox, so she circled right into my kick, and it just landed and KO.
Lights out.
And it was like 50 seconds into the fight, so I didn't even feel like I had a fight.
That was your first fight?
Yeah. But then this will kind of give you an idea, like, into the coaching style. I get out of the ring, and Jungsun was like, I think he said this isn't a direct quote, but he said something along the lines of like, don't get too big of a head, like, don't let your head get too big. She just hit your foot with her face. Like, and in the moment, I was like, but then, like, now that I know more about Muay Thai, I go back and watch the video, and I'm like, he's actually so right.
Yeah.
Like, that was just my chance. Like, I just threw a kick, and she just happened to, like, circle right into it.
Yeah. My goodness. Freaking. I love that guy. You know, he's just like so straightforward about what he says. Like just zero fucks given.
There is no one with an ego at Woodenman Gym. Like
yeah. It's funny. It's funny because I think I've kind of gone around to like different gyms and like had different spurts. And what I realized about Jungsun, he is someone who knows what it's like to be at the top. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like he's fought at the highest level. So I think he's 2-time Lumpini champion, I believe, and amongst other decorations, right? But those are the big ones, right? And he is someone who knows what it's like to be at the top, and someone who knows what it takes, how easy it is to come down. All it takes is you believing the hype, right? And so he's even if you're like the best or whatever. I remember one time I came in, and I remember I was proud of myself. You know, I was like, oh man, like I'm feeling good. Like I'm starting to win some fights. I got like a little streak going. And then he had me come out in front of the classroom, and then. Well, no, there was a class getting ready actually, and I was just hitting the bag after the fighter training. And then he goes, come here. And I was like, okay. And then he just starts like, okay, you need to fix this. And I was like, okay. And then, yes sir. And then, well, you need to fix this. And I'm just like, oh, and that's where that clicked for me. I was like, oh, you know what it's like to be at this highest level. Yeah. Like I was feeling like I'm on top of the world. You see that I feel like I'm on top of the world, and then you're like, no, man, if you start to feel like that, that's when you like start to lose. Yeah. And that was a big. I mean, it was indirectly talked about, and I know he's like this because he's like this with all the fighters. It's not just you. You know, everyone gets fair treatment. Yeah. There is no like favorites. I would say with Jungsun.
No. Yeah. I mean, it took me a little while to get used to. But
you know, tough love. You're from Texas.
and now I really appreciate it. And the other thing too is like. I think the reason it works for him is because I've said this to a few people. He's, one of, if not the best coach across any sport I've ever had. And I think a big part of that is that he is really hard on you in training, but he also knows how to show that he cares about you as a person outside of Muay Thai. I think some coaches, they try to be like tough love, but then they never really connect with you on a personal level. And so that's a really hard coach to perform for and to be a student of.
Yes.
But for him, he knows when you need like to be brought down to earth, and he'll always be hard on you. But then at the exact right moments is when he'll give you that encouragement, you know? So, like, he was being pretty hard on me, like, the whole IFMA. Yeah. Like, after every fight, he's like, that wasn't good,
Yeah.
And he's like, or maybe he'd be like, oh, this round was good, but everything else was bad. Yeah. And so it could be easy to kind of be like, man, like, I don't know. And then I remember, like, the day of the gold medal fight, he, like, posted this thing on Instagram that was, like, really sweet. And I saw it, and I was like, oh, like, I know he believes in me, He just wants to push me. And I really appreciate that about him, that he knows exactly when to be hard on you, exactly when to encourage you, and, like, beyond all of it, just, like, cares about you as a person.
Yeah. And he really is an amazing coach, because I feel like anybody if they're anyone coming out of the Bay Area, Jungsun has their hands on. Yeah. He's influenced their style. They come to the gym or something, like the big, like even Eddie's training out of Jungsun right now, right? So I'm just like, damn, like this, he really knows what he's doing. Yeah. I mean, like you're saying, it's funny because sometimes you're like, do you like me? And then you're like, okay, we're good. Everything you're saying is perfect because that's what we look for in a coach anyways, right? And I think he's really good at just outside looking in, really good at at creating a community. Like every time I go over, almost, because I used to come over to you guys' gym on the weekends, it was like, oh, we're watching the fights, or cookout, or hey, we're gonna go to the bar and do what, or karaoke. Or there's always like something going on. He really like brings people into his crew and really takes care of the people there, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's so impressive. Like I think, obviously he was an amazing fighter, but not every amazing fighter can become an amazing coach.
Yes.
And I think what's so impressive about him is you can tell, just like he was always trying to learn and get better as a fighter, he is always like trying to learn and get better as a coach.
Yes.
And I think that when you walk into a gym, right, like the first time you set foot in, you can feel what the culture is. You feel what the environment is. And I think it's always reflective of the kind of the leader of that gym, right? So it's like you might experience the gym and you're like, oh, this is like weird vibes, like it's kind of aggressive or what. And then you meet the person that's in charge of the gym and you're like, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think with Coach, you walk into Woodenman and it's intense. Like the expectations are high.
Yeah.
But it's like very much community. Like if there's anything going on, like Coach addresses it head on. Like he does not have any like tolerance for, I don't know, just like people kind of competing against each other in the gym or like causing disruption. And I think that the healthy culture and the community is just a direct reflection of what he's made, and also Malia, who
Malia is amazing.
Who's also one of the like primary people at Woodenman as well.
Yeah, another thing I was gonna say about Woodenman, your gym, is that makes it really special is when you walk into the gym, like you're saying, it is that like, oh damn, like I don't know if I belong here. Yeah. But then everyone is so friendly. Yeah. Everyone is so helpful. It's an amazing gym. Like anyone that's in San Francisco should definitely go check it out. You know, it's aside from like Coach's side, like the gym. Of course, you said it's like it's a fruit of his labor, a fruit of their labor. But it's a really amazing facility. You get like the best training, and then you just have a great time and meet great people. Like it's like you can't ask for like a better place to be. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else we got? Oh yes, can I? Well, we're gonna have to chop it up maybe. But was it any different having a different coach in your corner than like your normal coach? So at IFMA you have different coaches, yeah. Yeah. So Jongsun is your normal coach, and how is it like just working with these new coaches that don't know you per se?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was like a bit curious about what that would end up being like. Yeah. But first of all, I think throughout my career, I've had different people corner me. Usually they're people I've at least like worked with before. But Coach has a lot of fighters at the gym. He's like traveling around as well. So he's probably cornered me for maybe not even half my fights. Okay. I go through my camps with him. Yeah. But yeah, like my besides the first one he cornered, like I was with Saxon, for a fight, and then one fight Saxon couldn't come, so like Chidi and AK cornered me. And then, I've had Malia corner me, Nungsiam, even like Flossie at the gym has cornered me, Ethan's cornered me. So I'm at least a little used to like those different styles in the corner.
They know you.
Yeah, but yeah, they've all known me. And then at IFMA, they pretty much have a team of, I think there were 4 or 5 head coaches, and then 4 or 5 assistant coaches. And they asked if I had a preference, but honestly, I've never worked a lot with any of them. So I was like, no, whoever. Yeah. And then I think they kind of look at styles and try to match coaches and that sort of thing. So I ended up, and you have the same coaches throughout the whole tournament, which is nice. So I ended up with Aziz from Saitan Gym in New York, and then also Sean Madden from Easton in Colorado. And I never met Aziz. I met Sean during the qualifier tournament, and honestly, they were amazing. Like, I feel like I learned so much from both of them. Yeah. We were able to like hit pads a little bit before the tournament started, and then every day after the fights, we would also train. So I got in some time with them, still working, and they also asked, like, is there something that you like in the corner? Yeah. And for me, I tend to be like a pretty analytical person. So when I'm in the corner, I really like to have like clear instruction. Yeah. Like this is landing from her, like you need to do more of this, do more of that. So as long as I'm getting, that kind of instruction, it's I'm good, and both of them were so great at that, and I mean, I can't speak highly enough of both Aziz and Sean. Like, it was an amazing experience working with them, and even outside of the cornering and the fights when we were training. I feel like I was already like picking up stuff from both of them.
Yeah.
And all the other coaches that were there. It was pretty amazing to work with, you know, those caliber of coaches that you just wouldn't normally, people that you wouldn't normally work with. And, you know, they give you little tidbits that maybe isn't your coach's style, but something that works for you. And I think it's just great to get outside your bubble.
Yeah. Diversify a little bit. It's good because you know, great minds pulling together. You know, two heads is better than one kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
That's sick. I've heard nothing but good things about Aziz. Sean Madden, I've seen some of his stuff on socials and stuff. But that's awesome that you had a corner that synced up with you. You know, again, one of those things that's just like seems so synchronistic.
Yeah. And I mean, IFMA is such a different, but there's little nuances in the scoring. And I can't remember. I think Sean had also done IFMAs before, but I know Aziz has been at many of those events. So it was really valuable to just have like his expertise as well on how the scoring worked and what I needed to do specifically like within that environment to win, because it is like a little bit different than I think maybe some of the other fights I've had.
Nice. And I think do you think this has opened up more doors for you for fights in the US? Because I know that you've had to be kind of scrappy. You look for your own, a lot of the times, you know, look for your own fights. And you will get in contact with promoters and stuff. I remember the first time I saw you here in Thailand, there was a promoter here. I was like, hey, you know, chop it up.
Yeah, that was great. I got 2 fights out of that.
So it's been a little bit difficult. So do you feel like this is gonna like propel you, put you more on the map, or maybe people more willing to fight you, or what do you feel like this is gonna do for your career in America?
So I think a little bit of two things. I think before IFMA, I was in a little bit of an in-between spot because I had more experience than, you know, a lot of the standard amateurs in the U.S. Like, I think there's a lot of people that 3 to 5 fights maybe. But even when I had 5 fights, like, as my win record was increasing, it was getting a little harder to find fights. And yet, I was still kind of far behind in experience from the girls that were at the next level. Right, so even Summer, I think, has like 20-something fights. Like, Amy's pro now, and she fights a little lighter. Anyways, but just looking at people like that, right? They have a lot of fights, like more than 20 fights. And so it's kind of like that awkward in between of like, oh, well, I'm not like quite there yet, but it's getting harder to find fights, you know, within that kind of 10, you know, maybe 8 to 12, 15 fight range. So now I think it'll get easier for a little while because I do think there are, you know, a few at least girls in the U.S. that are in that higher fight range that now I can go back and get matched up with. I think once I get through that set of girls, it's going to get a lot harder again, because then you've kind of fought everyone. And obviously, you know, once you get closer to 20 fights, like, you're not even going to get matched up with people with 10, right? So I think there's like a good outlook and a good roadmap for maybe like the rest of this year, at least maybe a little bit further, and then I think it'll probably get harder again. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah,
it's really interesting actually. Someone who kind of cleared up mentality, gave me like a little nugget, was Connor Bracken, because I remember I was like, towards the end of my amateur career, I was getting like, oh man, these guys have so many fights, you know, and I'm like intimidated by the number. And I'd had a decent number, but they had like double or triple. Sometimes I'm like, dude, what the hell? You know? And he was just like, dude, everyone I fight has more fights than me. It don't matter. You just go in there, do your thing. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, like you just gotta, you know, if you trust your team, if you trust your preparation, like it's all good, you know, like we're gonna bring that number down, you know, we're gonna add to their losses. But
that's a good point.
I was like, bro, like, yeah, everyone has more, but it doesn't matter. Like, they're still gonna hit them, right? And actually, Y2K told me another variety of it as well, like, you know, our broken like communication. But it's just like, yeah, the number doesn't even matter. It's just like you're still gonna go in there, you're gonna do the same thing, and they can go down too. And I was like, damn. I remember I was like, I'm taking that, putting that in my back pocket, because it was getting to a point where you feel a little bit like scared, you know. And it's like, but then because sometimes you look at someone in the line, and you're like, at least how I can think about it is like they're immortal, because I feel immortal sometimes, you know. In the ring I'm just like, but so when you think someone else might feel like that, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can feel it.
More immortal.
But at the end of the day, we can both go down, you know. I don't think of myself in a way that like I don't ever think about like, oh, I'm gonna lose, or even a possibility. But if I look at this person like, oh man, I'm gonna like I'm gonna, oh, I'm sorry, you know, if I fight afraid or whatever. But yeah, it's just a little like as you start to have more higher number of fights or whatever, opponents with higher fights or more experience, the experience can seem intimidating, but it's like, hey, they can go down too, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. And at the same time, something that was like an interesting experience for me. I had a couple sessions with a sports psychologist.
Oh, I was gonna ask you about
earlier this year. Yeah, I'm like a nerd about sports psychology, anyways, like neuroscience and stuff. But and I feel like I've read a lot and invested a lot in learning about that side of things. I think it's really important. But one thing I was dealing with was like the flip side of that, which was it can be very intimidating, and like I definitely get nervous like fighting people with a lot more fights than me. Mm-hmm. But I also think there's a part of me, and maybe this is like not a champion mindset, but it's like less pressure to fight people with more fights than you, right? Because if I have 12 fights and I'm fighting you, who's a professional fighter with like 20-something fights, if I lose, like, that doesn't look bad for me.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I go in there and literally just forget everything I know about Muay Thai. Like, as long as I fight and I look good and my technique is good and I hold my own, it's a win-win situation, right? Because if they beat you, but you look at it and it's like, oh, great job, like, they could have beat you a lot worse. And if you win, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you beat that person. Yeah. So what I started running into is I was like my first probably 6-7 fights, everyone had more fights than me. Yeah. And then I, like, maybe the last, 7, 8, 9 fights I had before the qualifiers, I was, like, had the same amount of fights or maybe a little less, but much better record. Mm-hmm. And so I was running into this thing where I was like, wait, how do I get out of the underdog mentality? Because that was kind of my comfort zone. Was, like, going into fights where it's like, I come in with that underdog mentality. I'm like, you think you can beat me, but I know you can't. Yeah. Now all of a sudden, it's like, everyone thinks I'm going to win. Yeah. What if I don't?
Yeah, you got to
like,
go
that's so embarrassing. Yeah. Like, what if I'm not as good as people think I am? Like, what if I'm going to be exposed? Yeah. Yeah, so I understand, all of a sudden, like, you're not the underdog that everyone wants to win. Yeah. It's like, can somebody beat her? You know? Like,
yeah. You're suddenly stop chanting and new, and you're like, and still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was like a really interesting mental switch I had to make over the past couple of months. And obviously in this tournament, I was an underdog again. But back in it, like, I think amateur scene in the U.S., it's not quite that way anymore. Yeah. And it's a whole different mental challenge, I think, than the underdog kind of fights that you have.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And that's why I think, like, Jong Sanan is, like, the ideal coach for that, in my opinion, because it's just, like, he knows what it's like to stay on top. And if you feel like you're working, like, you have things to work on, you're going to keep, like, working like you have things to work on, but if you're like, oh, man, I'm good, I just beat this person, Yeah. But he don't let you get like that, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jong Sanan's a great person as far as that go. So working with the sports psychologist, that was, in particular, just to address this one thing, like the fixing the underdog mentality, or what aspects were you touching on and trying to work on with this psychologist?
So I started working with him. I think I ended up maybe doing like 6 or 7 sessions in total. I started working with him after my last fight last year. So that was for Muay Thai Purists, the IKF state title. Okay. And I fought, that was the fight at 125.
Yeah, I remember that fight.
Yeah, and that fight was it was weird. It was a weird fight because first of all, I had just come off a win against this girl, Shanna, in the Bay Area that was she'd been fighting for a while. And in that fight, I started out pretty slow, and I wasn't doing really what we'd trained. But then, like, the third through 5 rounds, I, like, turned it up. And it was, like, probably the first time in a fight that I've really pressured somebody. And I felt like I dug deep and, like, found kind of, like, that real, like, fighter heart in myself that I hadn't found before. And so after that fight, I was going into this next fight, and I was like, cool, I found that thing. Like, now it's just going to be there every time I fight. And so I go into this fight, and it was horrible. Like, I'm pretty mentally present in my fights. So normally when the fight's done, I'm like, okay, I know this is what happened in round 1. Yeah. Like, I know I landed this. I'm not kidding you. At the end of that fight, I was like, did I just fight? Like, I had no idea what had happened. Like, every round blurred together. Yeah. I kind of felt like I didn't hit her at all. Like, looking back, there were photos of me, like, teeping her in the face. I'm like, I had no idea that happened. Yeah. It was just bad, and I wasn't making adjustments, and then it was, like, a split decision at the end. Honestly, I watched the fight. I did win the fight, but in my head, at the end of the fight, I'm like, I lost. Like, I don't think I hit her one time. Yeah. I just had no idea what had happened. And it was a big bummer, because I was like, I had thought I was going to get a step up from the the fight against Shanna where I really like brought out that fighter mentality, and then all of a sudden I'm like taking steps backwards.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to work with a sports psychologist with on was, one, I felt like maybe I was fighting a little safe because I was trying to protect my record. So I wasn't, anytime you go out there and are aggressive, it's a little bit of a risk because the more you're throwing, the more you're also open to being countered, right? Yeah. So I think I was being a little safe because I wanted to just win. My goal wasn't going in and being like, I'm going to like take every single round and just dominate. It was like, I'm going to win. The fight, right? And that's a very different way that you approach a fight.
It's interesting because it's a very Thai way to approach a fight.
But yes, it is. But it's also like, that's not where that heart is, Like they talk about having heart in fighting a lot. And it's like, you need to want to go out there and like take every round, every second, get the knockout. And that's not what I was doing. It was very much like, from the beginning, I'm coming in on the defensive. Like, okay, as long as they don't do too much, like I'll win. So that was one thing, and then the second was, just understanding, like, I'm an analytical person. I was overthinking in fights a lot. Like, literally in the middle of the fight, I'm like, oh, shoot, like, I'm not stepping out enough on my knees. Like,
yeah, you can think like that.
But it's bad because you can't think like that. That's the thing. Like, when you're thinking like that, you can't fight well. Like, you have to have muscle memory and reaction and all that stuff. So I was working with him on those two things, and it was really helpful. I mean, he's like it wasn't like normal therapy. It was very practical. So it was like we'd talk about this one, issue, mental kind of block, and then he'd give me like 3 or 4 exercises. Like, here's a breathing exercise, here's a visualization exercise, and then I would go and like practice it for the next 2 weeks, like in sparring and training, and then we'd come back and kind of do it again, and very practical and helped me a lot.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, damn, that's crazy to think because of what you've accomplished. It's crazy to be like, how do I say? Because of what you've accomplished, it would be. I don't know if anyone off the top would be like, oh yeah, she needs a sports psychologist. You did it while you're on top. It's like, oh, I still have room to grow. So it just shows like your hunger for getting better in order to like go and tackle some problems that it's like could hold you back in future.
Definitely.
It's like maybe in this stage it's not problematic, but like in the next stage maybe. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's really cool that you can do that and still grow like even while you're on top, because I think that's the hard part and the trap that I fall into. And like I've totally experienced what you're talking about, like where you feel like no fight is ever the same, right? And like it sucks. I remember my first fight, I felt like on top of the world. I was like, I'm gonna be a fighter. Like this is what I meant, you know. And the next fight directly just the yin and the yang. Like just like I remember before warming up, I was already gassed. I was like panting, and
oh
I
my
was
gosh,
like no,
that's a bad feeling.
Yeah, no joke. And just like I won too, but I was just like won both of them. But I'm just like, bro, like. You have to learn. Okay, I was like, okay, even if I feel bad, I can still win. Yeah. Or even if I don't feel good, maybe I still look good. So I gotta pretend like I feel good and then just hope for the best. Exactly. But I totally understand going into that, and like sometimes like your mentality, you can't tune it in as much as you would like to. So you just kind of have to go with the flow and kind of let go of that, and try to get into that flow state, or that. So you stop and you just let the muscle memory and you trust your instincts and just like, hey, I worked on this shit. Let's go, So we touched about it a little bit earlier too. You work at Google. Yeah. And I know you have a couple other like side gigs, and you had was it like a bag company?
Yeah, or I have like a women's lifestyle brand called the And brand.
Yeah, and then you also you own a couple of houses, or is it you flipped a house? Or
I flipped a house.
Yeah.
During COVID, I bought a house in Texas near where my parents lived, and my dad and I would say we did like 60% of the work ourselves. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, all the time on your hands. Yeah. But it's crazy. Like, how do you find like work-life balance? Because I think about this job, and I obviously I don't come from that field, but I think like, oh man, you're working like 12, 14 hours a day. Like I don't know, where do you find the time to train for a fight at that? Sometimes I can't even get out of bed, and it's like, how do you work this out? How does the how do you balance this? How do you schedule?
I think there's a few things. One is like, I'm fully aware I'm super lucky to work where I do because like the culture at Google, they always say this. They're like, we want to be a place where you can bring like your whole self to work, and it really is. But then the crazier thing is that they actually mean it. Like everyone there knows I fight. Like some of my work colleagues like surprised me and came to one of my last fights.
Oh, damn.
Like they brought signs. Like
oh, that's cute.
They allow me. You know, we get good vacation, but it's not ever. I think a lot of people would be like scared to take like all of that vacation at once, which I do to do things like come out here and fight in Thailand. Like I took 4 weeks off.
Okay.
And I think a lot of companies, even though you have the vacation, wouldn't really accept you taking it all.
Yeah.
So they're super supportive in that way. And like even, you know, half our team is in New York, so I worked it out with my West Coast based team to actually work East Coast hours because fighter training at Woodenman is like 2:30 to 5, which obviously you can't do if you're working 9 to 5. So instead I work like 6 to 2. And then if I have more work, you know, I'll finish up in the evening or whatever. And I think what I've learned is that I think this is like a maybe controversial thing to say in the environment where it's like self-care.
We're all for like, anything controversial here.
Okay, like I understand the concept of self-care, but I also think that like only you know you. Yeah. And there are moments I think when we all know, okay, I got to pull back a little bit or I'm going to burn out. Yeah. But in general, I think that we can all push ourselves a lot harder than we think we can. Yeah. And like we live in a time of society where like there's so much relaxation, like Netflix, social media, like all of these things. Yeah. And it's a privilege to have all of those things. Like that's great that we live in a society that has that. Yeah. But I think it's maybe made us lose sight of a little bit of the fact that like I think we as people are made to be like doing things. Yeah. You know, we're not made to like sit on couches. We're made to be out living life. Yeah. And maybe you get burnout if you're doing the wrong things. Yeah. But I think that if you build your life in a way that the things you're spending your time doing are things that you love and you're passionate about, that shouldn't be burning you out every week, you know?
Bars. Yeah, so that's sick. Yeah.
I just came to the realization that like there really is enough time in the day if you use all of your time intentionally. Yeah. There's not enough time in the day if you like, you know, wake up late and then spend an hour on your phone in the morning and then like go to work and then aren't productive at work because you're like getting on your phone in the middle of the day and then come home at night and like watch 2 hours. Like there's not enough time to do a lot of things if that's what your day looks like. But for me, my schedule is like, I'm going to wake up at 5:30. I'm going to work from 6 to 2. I'm going to be as productive as possible during that time. Usually like maybe during my lunch break, I'll lift or get my conditioning in.
Damn.
Yeah. And so then that ends up like, you know, I have a little bit of work left to do because I didn't work through lunch. So then I'll go to fighter training from 3 to 5. Then, you know, maybe I hang out with a friend or something for a couple of hours right after, go home, finish an hour of work, and then I'm in bed by 9. Like, yeah. And that's my day. Yeah. And it's a lot, but like there really is enough time. Yeah. It's just I can't waste it.
Yeah. It's crazy because also what I think about is like recovery. You know, the way that you push yourself and like it's funny because I've been making like jokes about like, oh, you're so lucky or whatever. But I also have seen you work. I see how you push yourself, so I know it's not like maybe the opportunities present themselves sometimes, but you work really hard in the gym, and like I see that, and I'm like, can't imagine having a job on top of this, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. So what's your sleep schedule? It's like 9 to 6 or 9 to 9 to 5?
I'm non-negotiable. I get like 8.5 hours every night. Okay. So if I have to like not do other things because of sleeping, like I definitely will. And I definitely save like more of my social life for like the weekends. Okay. I don't go like I can't hang out with people every night or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, that's important. And then I kind of have this personal principle where on Sundays I do things, but I don't schedule things.
Oh, okay.
So I have a rule where it's like, I'm not going to commit to do anything on Sunday because if I get to Sunday and I'm just like dead and I need to just like hang out and not do a lot, then I can. If I get to Sunday and it's like, oh, I want to hang out with people, like, you know, then I'll go hang out with friends. But that's my kind of protected time where it's like, I'm not having any commitments on Sundays.
I might hang out with you on the fly, but I'm not planning on it.
Exactly.
Got you. All right, that's cool. So what is it like for you to be a female in a male-dominated sport? Is that something that like crosses your mind? Because I know for some people maybe like, especially if you grew up playing sports, it's like not a thing because you've been around so much. Other times, like there's girls that are like, I want to try maybe they would try it if there was an all girls class, but they wouldn't try in a general, you know, or they would be like pushed away from it because it's like, oh, that's a guy's thing, you know, like how is that for you navigating the landscape? Is it any different, or is it something like have you been hanging around guys your whole life from playing other sports, or like what is that like for you?
It's a good question. I mean, you know, softball was like all girls team, so just different dynamics. It's a team sport. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I grew up with a brother, so I feel like I'm like used to been around guys. But yeah, when I first went to Saxon's, that was even more, I would say, like, more guys in the gym. Like, when I first started, there was one girl, her name's Nina. She was kind of fighting and training at Saxon's son's gym, so we would train together a little bit.
That's sick.
But at Saxon's, it was almost all guys. And so that's just, like, was kind of my introduction to the sport. Yeah. I don't think I really noticed or minded a lot. It was nice, though, I would say. So I didn't notice or mind that it like was mostly guys there. But when I got to Woodenman, there's a bigger community of women there, and not all of them fight. But one thing I appreciate about the gym is Jungsunan is very committed to teaching everyone really strong foundations. Yeah. So even the people that don't fight are really good training partners. Yeah. And a lot of times have like, I tell the girls this all the time. I'm like, you need to fight because my friend Dana, she's had a couple PKBs, but I'm always telling her, like, you need to fight because you're harder for me to spar than, like, half the girls I fight. Yeah, she's good. Yeah, so I've noticed the difference in that gym, having other women to train with, and just, like, from a community aspect. And that's also something, you know, I really appreciate when I'm out here at Fairtex. There's a massive group of very high-level, like, elite female fighters here. And so, yeah, all of that to say, like, I don't think I mind when it feels male-dominated, but it's also nice to be in environments where, you know, there are other female fighters and both from that aspect of community and then also just having training partners that you can, you know, work really well with. Okay, yeah, that's cool. It's funny that you say, like, you don't even really notice it. It's like, okay, this is what it is. Like, you didn't think about it in the way that's like, like, this is intimidating in any way, you know? It's just like, I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. Yeah, right? And I think it's also probably part of the, like, time that I'm getting into the sport, because I think even a couple years ago, people like Angela, like I've kind of seen her talk about especially being in Thailand, I think it's a little different. Yeah, for sure. But some of the challenges that she faced and a lot of the things that she had to overcome, and I think, you know, she's kind of several years ahead of me and how when she got started with Muay Thai. But I think people like that paved the way a little bit, definitely faced like more challenges and probably felt the struggles of it being a male-dominated sport, maybe even more than like people coming through right now. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I know Angela pretty well. Like I was actually at Sitsampinan with her in 2019. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I know her, and like I remember she was like had to like negotiate for like 10,000 or something. I'm like, and you know, 10,000 baht, which is not very much money, you know, and living out here and doing all that. But yeah, I definitely understand that. And then just navigating, like, is there ever any like drama, like walking in when you walk through the gym, it's like, oh, like you're trying to steal my boyfriend or anything like that? Are the DMs going crazy? No. Are the DMs going crazy? Yeah, it's just like that's what because a lot of my audience is gonna be guys are gonna be like, yeah, we expect, you know, the like girls get it easy and they get like it's whatever. There's gonna be all the dating, and I'm like, there's like a dating aspect and it's just weird, and I just see it like. No, I would honestly, like, never date somebody at a gym I was training at. Yeah. Like, it's, just not, no. Yeah, I'm not even, the social aspect, I think that, well, it's funny because Jungsunan, like, always makes fun of me. He's like, you're a tomboy. And it's not true in my normal life, but I will say, like, when I come in the gym, maybe I kind of adapted to be this way because it is so male-dominated. Yeah. It's very much like a flip of the switch, right? Like, I would say in my normal life, like, I'm pretty feminine. Like, I'm pretty, like, but when I get in the gym, it's kind of like I adapt a little bit because, like, I'm conscious about the vibes, like, the signals that I'm sending out, and I want it to be, like, I'm there for, like, everyone at Woodenman is very, like, respectful. Like, they would never, you know, make someone feel uncomfortable anyways. Yeah. But I do, like, feel like I am there for a purpose, like I'm very focused, and so I just think it's not even.
That's not a thing. Yeah, I got you. There could be a lot. I've heard a lot of like gym stories, a lot of gym drama from like my female friends that compete. And I was like, oh, this happened. I'm like, damn, son, like really?
That's
like,
so I think again, going back to the gym culture, like there's kind of like zero tolerance at Woodenman for anyone that's like causing that stuff or So I think that's the gym culture is very much like not doesn't allow for I think like gym drama.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then and also being a girl like you could beat up probably most girls and guys at this point, Yeah. So like looking for someone, would you be like, does it have to be a fighter, or are you like, okay, I'll just date someone at Google? Like what would that look like for you? Would you date someone who wouldn't fight? I guess is the real question.
You know what? Like I would always say like when people were asking me that question, I'm always like, okay, I will either date somebody that knows how to fight and they're good at it, or I never need to see them try.
Okay,
I'm just gonna throw this out there to any of the ladies watching, or honestly, maybe the guys watching that think they look really good when they hit pads. Like,
oh yeah,
I see people come to the gym, big guy, like super athletic. You watch them hit pads. Like, ladies, if you're walking around the streets thinking that your boyfriend can protect you.
Take them to
I've
the gym.
seen these men hit pads. They're not prepared. They're not gonna save you. So that's why I always say like, like I'll date somebody that's a great fighter, or like if I'm looking to date somebody and they
don't train,
like don't ask me if you can come to the gym and train with me, like because it's the attraction level. Like I've seen guys walk in the gym and I'm like, oh, he's kind of cute, and then I see him hit pads and I'm like. Suddenly, all attraction is gone. I can't.
I got
you. And it's fine if that's not your thing. Like that's great. It's just I don't need to see it.
I get it. Yeah, and it's funny because I see this question asked on a variety of shows that I've seen, like girl fighters that I've listened to.
Yeah.
And like I remember there was one that was like really harsh, and I was like, damn, son. Like there was like it was like her boyfriend was a pro fighter and he lost. I don't remember who it was exactly, but he lost, and she didn't find him attractive anymore because he gave up. I was like, wow, aggressive.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is interesting though being in this art. You start to see things a little bit different because it's very like how I guess like dating dynamics work sometimes. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be the protector, and it's like, no, you're not. I'll protect you. I'd rather do it that way.
It is like a funny dynamic. And honestly, I don't know, but I would also be curious, like. From the other side, like if a guy is dating a girl that's a fighter, like I would just love to know, and they're not. I would love to know how they feel about that.
Oh yeah. That's another.
I guess there are like a lot of female UFC fighters who are like married or have a partner that's not a fighter.
But they're badass at something. So usually,
I would love to hear I would love that interview. That's what you need to interview. Like bring in someone's boyfriend who's like not a fighter and just like get the details on how that makes him feel.
That's a good idea actually. We're gonna throw that out there. Anyone who's dating a fighter, every man who's dating a female fighter and doesn't fight. Come on the podcast. We gotta talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is interesting because of the dynamics that men sometimes feel. I have friends and I dabble in the groups or whatever where it's just like I couldn't do that, or like just fragile, like what do you call it? I don't know, like fragile ego. Fragile ego or whatever. But it's pretty funny. I think we kind of talked about everything I wanted to talk to. Guys, don't be sleazy to Megan. I know we just talked about a lot of funny stuff, but like don't.
I have an ongoing series where I post the weird DMs I get on my story.
Oh, actually.
Just know.
Be wary. Yeah.
If you come in there asking for feet pics, it's like going public.
Are you dropping handles?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, that's
I literally
sick.
have done like and then some of them are like months long, where like every couple months the same person says something, and it's just like this is an ongoing series.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. All right, but I feel like we talked about some good things. You're very accomplished. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I know we talked about some funny stuff, but where can people find you, Megan?
People can find me on the internet, not in person. People can find me. My Instagram handle is @Meg_Wash.
Okay. Yeah. Is that where you're primarily posting it? Okay. Cool, yeah. And she's not Googleable because she works at Google. She just deleted any trace that you can to find her. So good luck, guys. I tried. All right, but yeah, thanks for coming on. And yeah, I had a great time with you here. And good luck moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.